You ever wonder how much a country's destiny is written in its landscape? Can mountains and oceans define its future? Well, today we're looking at a fascinating case study of that very idea, India. It's a place where geography has created both a massive natural fortress and a crucial gateway to the world. And that quote from Admiral Alfred Mahan, it just nails it, doesn't it? It perfectly sets the stage for what we're talking about. We're going to dive into how India's unique spot on the map, sandwiched between the planet's highest mountains and a massive, vital ocean, tells us an incredible story of both defense and connection. So, let's start our journey up in the north, at the base of what is, without a doubt, the most incredible natural barrier on Earth, the mighty Himalayas. For literally thousands of years, this mountain range has been like a giant wall, shaping the entire identity of the subcontinent. For centuries, you see, these mountains were India's ultimate trump card for defense, pretty much walling it off from major invasions from the north. But that's not really the whole story anymore. Ever since China annexed Tibet back in 1951, this natural barrier has totally transformed. Now it's a very active, very complex strategic frontline. When you look at the ground game, the terrain tells two completely different stories. China actually has a huge logistical advantage. The Tibetan Plateau is high, sure, but it's also relatively flat, which means they can build highways and railways like crazy. For India, on its side, it's a constant struggle against unbelievably rugged mountains and brutal weather, making every mile of road a massive challenge. But then you look to the sky and the whole situation flips. India's air bases are tucked into the Himalayan foothills, so they're at a lower altitude, the air is denser, and that gives their fighter jets a huge edge. They can take off with a full tank of fuel and a full weapons load. China's airfields up on the plateau, they have the opposite problem. The thin air means less lift, so their planes can't carry as much. It's a real game changer. Okay, so let's head way south now, leaving the mountain fortress behind and turning to India's great connector, the Indian Ocean. This isn't a barrier at all. This is the country's main highway to the entire globe. I mean, just look at a map. India's massive peninsula sticks right out into the middle of the Indian Ocean. This puts it smack dab in the center of the world's most important shipping lanes. A huge amount of global trade, especially energy, flows right past its coast. That is an incredibly powerful position to be in. And what that means is, keeping these sea lanes safe and open isn't just a good idea, it is absolutely essential. We're talking about something that's critical not just for India's economy, but for the stability of the entire global economy. And if you need one number to really drive that point home, here it is, 89%. That's how much of India's imported oil comes by sea. It's just a stark, simple reminder of how completely dependent the country's energy security is on keeping those maritime routes safe. Of course, this vital gateway has its fair share of dangers. The Indian Ocean today is a real hotspot for a whole mess of modern threats. You've got everything from piracy and terrorism to drug trafficking and illegal fishing. And on top of all that, you have this growing geopolitical rivalry between the world's major powers playing out right there. So to handle all these challenges while tapping into the ocean's massive potential, India is really pushing this idea of a blue economy. The basic idea is to move beyond just taking resources from the ocean and instead build a sustainable model, one that balances economic growth with keeping the ocean itself healthy for the long run. Okay, so from the coasts, let's now move inland and look at the arteries that have kept this nation alive for thousands of years. India's enormous and powerful river systems. Seriously, these rivers are the absolute lifeblood of the subcontinent. The Ganges River alone supports hundreds of millions of people. It feeds the vast agricultural heartland that has been the cradle of Indian civilization since, well, forever. But, and you're probably sensing a pattern here, these rivers also have a dual nature. They're lifelines, for sure. But because so many of them flow across international borders, they also become a source of major political friction. Things like water sharing agreements and dam projects are huge points of conflict with neighbors like Pakistan, Bangladesh, and China. And this quote really gets to the heart of why those tensions are ramping up. In our world, with growing populations and a changing climate, fresh water is fast becoming one of the most strategic, most precious resources on the entire planet. So you've got all this complexity playing out on land and at sea. The big question is, how does India use its unique geography to protect its interests? Well, that leads us to its grand maritime strategy.
But first, to get India's strategy, you have to understand the challenge. China has been busy creating what's often called the String of Pearls. It's basically a network of ports and military-friendly facilities all along the Indian Ocean, designed to protect its own trade routes and project its influence right into India's backyard.
So, India's response? It's a brilliant countermove called the Necklace of Diamonds. And this isn't just about playing defense. It's a proactive plan to build its own network of alliances and naval assets to secure its maritime neighborhood and maintain stability in the region. And you can see how this strategy builds a really powerful counter-network. By getting access to key ports like Chabahar in Iran, Dagam in Oman, and Sabang in Indonesia, India is placing its own diamonds at critical choke points across the ocean. And all of this is anchored by its own territory, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which are basically like a giant, unsinkable aircraft carrier sitting right in the middle of it all. So, from the incredible Himalayan fortress up north to the strategic ocean gateways down south, India's geography is just a source of massive advantages, but also some really profound challenges. It helps protect the country and sustain its huge population, no doubt. But in this incredibly fast-changing world we live in, the big question is still out there. Can the very geography that has defined India's past really be enough to secure its future?